Oh, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to a very Toyota 4Runner-y version of Project Time Garage. Yep, that's right. We are finally getting back on the Project Junk Runner. Why do we call it the Junk Runner? Because a little bit junky. Now, if you don't know anything about this, I'm going to put a link up here to a whole series, well, a couple of videos that constitute a series on this little Toyota 4Runner. This is a 1994 Toyota 4Runner 4-wheel drive 3.0 V6. Not really the most desirable engine ever made, but still a 94 Toyota 4Runner. So, you know, give me a break. Still worth something. If you recall, the previous owner says it runs okay, and the 4x4 works great, and he wants $1,000 for trade. In this case, we ended up getting it for 700 bucks. We started it and drove it home, missing on 2 cylinders, bad miss, dead compression. Turned out to be valves in 2 cylinders. I believe it, no, exhaust valves, burn exhaust valves, 2 cylinders. So I've got a flashlight stuck in the exhaust port here. And if you will look, you see light in there? You can see behind that valve. No good. So that's an intake, or that's an exhaust valve leak, big time. We back up to this one. It's way worse. Like, it's not closing at all. If we come around and go into the intake side, you can actually see my light shining on the side of the combustion chamber there. So that valve's not closed. Then we come to the exhaust of this one. It's actually not as bad, but it's the same, pretty much the same way. Not uncommon for these, from what I understand, but either way, it is what it is. When we last left off, I had taken the heads, dropped them off machine shop, had them all done, and I'd started bringing parts in for it. And I've got a lot of parts for it, but honestly, I don't quite remember where I left off. So we're gonna have to kind of remember some of that, and I'm sure there's gonna be some more stuff we have to get. What have I done up to this point? I finished pulling the front of the engine apart because, well, I hadn't done that before. I had left the water pump on it, and I had left the front crank pulley on there. So I got those off. I have resealed this coolant passage, and I've got a new knock sensor on the way for it. Don't have that yet, still waiting on it. I've cleaned up the deck, went ahead and cleaned off the pistons, got those kind of decent. If I were a smart man, I would go ahead and replace the starter and the air conditioner compressor and the power steering pump and all that stuff while I'm in here. But quite honestly, I don't really know what I've got yet. And, you know, who's to say I won't start this thing up and it had just a massive knock? I don't know. So probably the best thing to do at this point is play it safe, do what's needed to get the thing back up and running, and see where we're at from there. So that's what I'm going to do. Show you what we've got on the table in terms of parts for it. There are the heads back from the machine shop. They've been back for a while now. I've got a fresh set of head bolts for it. I've got the engine gasket kit for it. So all that should be here. Fresh head gaskets right there. Like I said, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff that I do need that I do not have here, but really the fastest way to figure out what we need is start putting it back together. We know we've got head gaskets. We know we got exhaust manifold gaskets. We know we got head bolts. We can stick all that back together, get to that point. I've also got a fresh timing set. I keep that over here next to the camera bag on that stool. That's where its home is. And so anyway, we've got a lot of the stuff for it, but there's a lot more stuff we're going to need. So let's fly into this thing and see what we can get done. All right, let's try to set a head on this thing. That was easy. I'm going to take a couple of bolts and just loosely run them down. in here just so the thing doesn't fall out. I will have to pull the cam out of it in order to put a couple of these in, I think. Actually, in order to put a lot of these in. That's okay. I've had the cam out once. All right, good. So that'll at least keep it sitting on there. On to the next. Something holding me up here. What is it? Nothing. Nothing at all. Again, stick a couple of bolts in here just to make sure the head doesn't just jump up and go flying off into outer space or something. I've already cleaned all these holes out, so these threads should be okay. There, all right. Heads are seated. Okay, there are both heads and exhaust manifolds back on it. I guess the next thing I need to worry about is that stupid crossover tube that goes around the back. You know, the thing that's responsible for all the heat right there on the back side of these engines. Well, heads are set on it, and I've got some of the bolts dropped in. Not torque, just, you know, finger screwed in so the heads don't move. Not that they're going to move, but, you know, better safe than sorry. I've also taken care of the rear exhaust crossover that goes from that exhaust manifold, crosses over and joins into this exhaust manifold. So that's on there. Again, I've in there finger tight, all the nuts and all and stuff are on there. So that's put back together. I could, I think, get the heads torqued and get the timing kit on this thing today. But, there's always a but. I seem to have lost about 3 of the cylinder head bolt washers. When you buy a set of cylinder head bolts, they don't come with washers. And I knew that, but I thought I had all of them. I thought they were all accounted for, but evidently a couple of them were still stuck, maybe stuck to the head when they went to the machine shop. I don't know. I had all of them together, you know, with a piece of wire through them as I took them off, and that piece of wire was twisted tight, but still short. So, yep. I guess I get to do that. So I've gone ahead and ordered them, so they should be here tomorrow, along with the knock sensor. So that's all going to be here. So I guess I will see you guys tomorrow. So stand by. So I've got the cylinder head on it here. I went ahead and removed the cam and all the cam bearing halves and all that. So now it's time to torque down the cylinder head. I already have the bolts in there, and I already have a thin coat of oil on the washers and on the threads. I know somebody's going to say don't do that, but I got the service manual from Toyota. It's exactly what it says to do. That's what I'm doing. I have new bolts, I have new washers, I have a new attitude. So you don't want to torque it down with one of these, but to take up all that extra slack, you can. The torque sequence on these is supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Already ran that one down my hand. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now there's a 6-point bolt down here that goes last after all this is done. So at this point, the manual says that we're going to torque these down to 33 foot-pounds in the same order we just got done tightening them in. So all right, now that that's done, the manual says that we put a paint mark on the front of each bolt head. Then we're supposed to come back and go an additional 90 degrees. Then we're going to come back again after that and do another 90 degrees. So our mark in the front will end up in the back. All right, we start right here. That one. That one. All right. After that, we're going to come back and do another 90 on every one of them. That's some serious torque, boys and girls. Okay, they all made it to torque. I'm glad. Because if one would have stripped, I've been upset. Also, there are a couple of 6-point bolts, one on each head. On this one, it's back there on the back side. It was going at 30 according to the manual. Okay, that's that cylinder head torqued. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put the valve train, or the cam and everything back on this, hook up our exhaust manifold down here, and then I'll move over to this cylinder head. We'll do it the same way. Got a new seal going in here. I've decided to put a cam in it. 2 cams in it. Perfect. All right, I've gone through and got all these cam bearing caps tightened down. They went to 12. Basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the back 9, 10, and then 11 and 12. How it worked. So that should be that taken decent care of. I guess the only other thing now is jump over. I'm gonna pull the cam off this side and I'll go ahead and drop the rest of the head bolts in it, get it torqued down, and that'll be both cylinder heads on the truck. All right, that is both cylinder heads on and torqued. I'm going to tighten up that crossover manifold back there, and I guess it's time to start putting a water pump and timing kit on it. Moving right along. All right, quick status update on this. I've gone ahead and put the bottom pulley on it. I've got the the lower timing cover housing back on it. Fan pulleys back on it. Water pumps back on it. Thermostat housing all back on it. And also I've got the tensioner pulley back on it. Obviously the timing belt's sitting up here. Now, yeah, I'm a little early in this game. It's a little too early to be doing all this. Usually you do a timing belt job with the intake on it because of that big pulley there puts tension on the belt from the top. But I can go this far with it, not a problem. If you've never put a timing belt on one of these, it's not rocket surgery. Make sure number one cylinder is all the way to top dead center. When you do that, you're going to have a little tiny mark here that will line up with 0 on the front cover. Both of your cam gears will have a triangle on them here, and you can see there's a yellow dot up there that somebody did before me. That's timing mark. Exact same this one. So arrow pointing to dot, arrow pointing to dot, and arrow pointing to dot. This notch pointing to 0. We are in time as far as the engine goes. As far as the belt goes, there's a mark on the very bottom of the belt that corresponds to a mark on the very bottom of the bottom pulley. Real simple. Match the dot to the stripe. And then up here, it's a matter of lining up. Extremely hard to do one-handed. It's just a matter of lining up that mark on the timing belt with your triangle and your dot. So all that's in line, and then we would come right over here and see how it's not quite lined up there. It's because I got too much slack down here, but you can push yourself over a tooth. Obviously, like I said, with one hand it's extremely tough to do, but I can lay the camera down and do it. So there's that one straight up as well. Now I don't have the tensioner in there yet. I was waiting on obviously waiting to get the intake set before I do all that and put it back together. But guess what I did? That's the tensioner. I dropped it. Guess what it did? The pin that's supposed to be in there holding it compressed jumped out. Guess what I have? Useless tensioner. I gotta go buy another one. Anyway, on the bench I've got the lower intake and I've got the upper intake, which both are much cleaner now, by the way. If you're looking to clean intakes and stuff like that, right there's the stuff to do it. Mag wheel. And let's see, somewhere on here it says something about rough cast alloy. Yeah, there it is right there. On rough cast alloy wheels. That's a very kind way of saying if you spray that stuff on your clear-coated aluminum wheels, they're gonna be trashed. But for things like this really porous and rough aluminum, does a great job. Went out shopping on Yoda Shop and ended up buying the upper timing cover gasket thingy. So that's that. And I ordered a set of seals for my injectors. So before I put the intake back together, I'm going to go ahead and dig those out and get those replaced. I'm going to set the intake, or the lower part of the intake on there, get it all bolted down and torqued up. And then at that point, I can go ahead and worry about getting my timing belt, you know, indexed and all that stuff. That'll be taken care of. I'll drop by a parts store, grab another cam tensioner. I think at that point, it's just a matter of doing some finishing touches and see if we can get this thing to light. So that's where we're going next. Let me get these seals put in this lower intake. See about getting it stuck on the truck. Getting these seals out of here is actually pretty easy. Just take a pick or something and reach down there and just kind of flip it up sideways. Now, pay attention to which way it comes out. In my case, there's a more rounded bottom and a flatter top. And the more rounded bottom appears to go down. We'll clean out the seating surface really, really well, or pretty well. And then as far as reseating these things, they kind of want to flip down with you when you put them in. So I get them oriented right and stick something through them and drop them down in there. And to seat them home, I just use a socket. There you go. Seat it home. Not really tough at all. I'll go back and do the rest of these, come right back with you. Oh, also, when you're opening these up, I'm only using the bottom part at this point. The other parts go on the actual injector itself. So don't want to get any of these lost. Now, here's where we have to do a little bit of trickery. I've got to pull this belt around enough so that I get it all lined up on both sides. Not terribly difficult, but still a little bit of a pain. There we go. That one's lined up. That one's lined up. Everybody's totally happy. At that point, we can just push the, we can push it down and it will hold the belt well enough for us to get some bolts in this and get it tightened down. So, bolts. All right, torquing these guys down. Basically, 13 foot-pounds. There's no tightening sequence, evidently, because the torque is so low. I have the book. I was surprised too. Anyway, 13 foot-pounds. I will start from the center and work out because, well, that just seems right to me. 13. Well, the next procedure we're going to do while we have this thing apart is we're going to pull these injectors out, and we're going to reseal all of them. You can see some of these still have the other seals in them that we replaced stuck to them. The way that happens is we just pull out, and here is a seal and a rubber O-ring. That's what's in this kit right here. We'll pull the O-ring out first. Pull off this seal. Replace the O-ring, or replace the seal, which is a much better fit now, by the way. And then the O-ring. We'll do that 6 times. When it comes time to put them back in here, a little bit of chain and cable lube I have found goes a long, long way. There. All right. We'll just do that 5 more times. Well, after I got those seals replaced in the fuel rails, I went ahead and got the fuel rails on it and buttoned back up. I got this crossover tube put back on here. I went ahead and plugged the injectors back up, really just because they're easily identified, and this kind of helps me start to lay out my harness a little bit, you know, a little bit better. I went ahead and found some things that I know where they plug up, and obviously this probably isn't going to be final, but doing this for me anyway really helps me to kind of get everything, you know, go in the right direction, and we'll unplug and reroute and stuff before we're done. I went ahead and fixed this right here. This was a whole bunch of wires just uglified, so I put some of that split loom wiring loom over it. Really, I guess the next thing is going to be back there in the back. That whole coolant housing thing needs to go on. I guess the next thing I'll be doing is grabbing a timing belt tensioner, you know, the one that I broke, and maybe going ahead and getting that all the backside kind of buttoned up, and hopefully at that point it'll be time to set the upper intake plenum on there, and maybe the front timing upper timing cover and all that. So we're getting there, and we're getting there fast. Hopefully just a couple afternoons, if things go somewhat decent, a couple afternoons, I will hear this thing start up or not start up, whichever. So, okay, I'll be back with you very shortly. Okay, I'm to the point of putting in the distributor now, and I'll just kind of show everybody exactly how you line these things up before you put them back in. So if you look at the end of the gear, you're going to see one gear that has a raised notch on the face of it right there. I don't know if the camera shows that. I'll try to enhance that as much as I can during post-production, but anyway, there's a raised notch right there. Well, that raised notch corresponds to that notch there. So you line those two there up where they face each other. Then your distributor has this point on it right here, right? That point is made to index to that notch or that protrusion right there. So you line all those things up, pop it in there. Now with all those things lined up, the protrusion here with the notch here and the protrusion here, we'll line that up with the protrusion here and just set it in. There we go. At this point, we'll take our hold down bolt and go ahead and run it in there just finger tight, because we're going to have to do a little bit of timing on this if it starts. And then we can go ahead and plug in our distributor. While we're over here, let's go ahead and plug in our coil. All right, so there are those. Also, I got the upper plenum back on it. You probably can't see for this plastic bag here, but upper plenum's back on it, torqued down. I have most of our vacuum hoses hooked back up. I don't have a lot of our coolant hoses hooked back up yet, because I'm not going to have any coolant in here when I start it the first time, because I just simply don't need it to start it and make sure that things are going to work. However, if everything looks good, then I'm going to get on the interwebs and I'm going to order a bunch of hoses, because I'm pretty sure most of these right here have about had it, and there's no point in putting them in service. But I'm not going to spend $600 million on a bunch of hoses if I start the thing and it's got a rod knocking. So I'll find out what I got first. So I'm getting ready to put the distributor back in this thing, or put the distributor cap back on it, and get the plug wires routed and all that stuff in an attempt to get ready to fire it pretty soon. And I noticed something, and this is a cautionary tale for you guys that are working on something that maybe it's the first time you've ever worked on. Check this out. On this side of the engine over here is 1, 3, and 5 cylinders, odd bank. On this side is 2, 4, and 6. So the cap is labeled which one is number 1, right? So that's this one here. But if you notice, there are 3 wires already in this loom. I didn't put this here. This is how I took it off the truck. And if we look at the wires that are in this loom, it is number 1, number 3, which we expect, and then number 4. That's number 4. So it's 1, 3, and 4 here. And if you notice, these are the long wires, you know, that were supposed to run over here and go in this area. And the short wires that are left over were the ones that were supposed to run back here. So that means they had 1, 3, and 4 back there as opposed to 1, 3, and 5. Which means on this side, it would have had to have been wrong too. What that means is the last person who worked on this got the firing order wrong. So that's something to watch out for. Of course, for right now, it's not a big deal. I don't even have plugs in the thing yet. I'll just reroute the wires and we're off to the races. But cautionary tale nonetheless, pay attention to stuff like that. It'll get you. All right, so I have most of this back together. A lot of the stuff is just kind of sitting there like the upper timing cover here. It's just, there's not even any bolts in it. It's just sort of sitting up there just to keep anything from flying out and killing us, because I think we're about to start it. I went ahead and got another set of plug wires for it because the other ones were all grouchy and angry. So I took care of that. A lot of bolts and stuff, fasteners still haven't been tightened down yet because we're not final here. What I want to do at this point is kick the key on, pressurize the fuel rail, make sure we don't have any leaks. And if we don't have any leaks, I think I'm going to go for a quick start and see what happens. I don't think too much bad's going to go down. I did put the radiator back in it and hooked up the transmission cooler lines again. Obviously, there's no fan. You know, there's no AC compressor. There's no power steering pump. None of that stuff's hooked up because I want to see what happens here. I want to make sure that it's going to run and it's going to sound right. Now it's going to be loud because I still don't have the exhaust hooked up back there where the down pipe that goes out to the muffler. So it's going to sound like hammered hell, but you know, at least we'll know if it's going to light off and if it's going to run somewhat smooth. Obviously there's no coolant in it, so I can't run it very long. You know, maybe 30 seconds or so tops is probably all I'll do, because it is okay to temporarily run an engine without coolant. Just don't overdo it. So, all right, well, I guess without further ado, let's get a couple of cameras set up and let's pressurize this fuel rail. Oh, also, I do have a couple of vacuum lines plugged off here because I don't have everything hooked up. Power steering and all that stuff not hooked up. So I don't know what else to say, but let's give it a try. All right, well, we have the booster box here set to on, and we have the battery charger there set to medium. So with any kind of luck, we're doing nothing. We're doing nothing because, well, we haven't plugged in the battery charger yet. So let's do that. Then some things will be happening. All right. Yay, okay. So hopefully this is the car battery and the battery charger is keeping us charged up. I've rolled this thing over by hand a bunch of times, just making sure there was no interference and nothing going crazy. But I think what I'm going to do before I do anything else is I'm going to unhook the coil wire so I don't get any fire. And I'm going to turn it over a few times, just kind of see how it sounds. Make sure that I'm hearing an even cadence of the engine and not maybe a skip indicating no compression. But it felt like it had compression when I turned it over by hand. Let's start with that. So there's the coil wire, unplugged. Let's turn the key on, see what happens. Honestly, that sounded pretty good. So I'm gonna open the garage door here and I'll kick the key on a few times and see if make sure I get pressure up to the fuel rail. We're gonna send it. Come on, dogs, I'm sure y'all wanna go outside. This is gonna be scary. Hell, I wanna go outside, it's scary. Okay, I guess quick pressurize the fuel rail a couple of times. Oh yeah, forgot something. Maybe we should hook up the coil wire again. That's going to be important. There we go. Okay, fire in the hole. Ooh. I'm gonna say timing because our distributor here is all the way around. So I'm gonna pull that thing back. It may be just a little too far advanced, I don't know. I think we have base timing set. I don't think we have anything else set. So let's try it that way right there. See what happens. Okay, major leak over here of some sort. What is that? Ah, no big deal, it's just gas. We'll start over. No, I'm just kidding, we better find that. Well, it was running, but it sounded like it had a dead miss. And got to looking, and the reason it had a dead miss, I actually missed on 2 cylinders, is because I had number 4 and number 6 wires flip-flopped on the cap here. So now that I've gotten over that, I need to get the thing to start for a second so I can jump out here and look and see where the fuel leak's coming from. I have a pretty good fuel leak over here, and I think it's coming from the feed line down under the truck where it comes up. It's a high pressure crimp hose. So I don't really have any other options. I'm by myself here. So I'm gonna take a camera and a flashlight and see if we can see it. And I have 29 fire extinguishers at the ready. Well, 3. Found it! It wasn't the fuel line after all. It is pouring out. I bet that's the fuel return hose back to the tank. Pouring out right there, just gushing, like lots gushing. Yeah, that's fuel return. I bet money. Let me see if I can find that. But hey, it sounded a lot better, didn't it? There, fuel return. I missed that. That's okay. Let's see if this thing will, see if it'll start up again. Okay, I say it runs, and it runs on all 6, or at least 5 of them that I can tell. I know there's still a lot of stuff that's not hooked up on the engine, vacuum wise and all that stuff. I think the next thing I'll probably do is go ahead and hook the exhaust up so I can quieten it down and listen to it, you know, the bottom end, make sure it's not rattling or anything. It's just so dadgum loud I can't tell. This video is getting kind of long anyway, so I'm probably gonna go ahead and end it here. And on the next episode, we're going to try to get the thing out and move it, maybe move it outside, see if we can get it to shift through the gears, see what we got there. And then, you know, we're just going to keep working on it. I've got a lot of stuff I want to do. I'm kind of excited about it. So anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends about us. Guys, I'll see you next time.